What's up, guys? Welcome to the Young Guns podcast. It's been a crazy week in the hockey world. As you guys know, the NHL will not be participating within this year's 2022 Beijing Olympics, meaning your favorite players like Alexander Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, and others will not be participating at the Olympics this year once again. It's unfortunate, but because of COVID, that's just the way it goes. So, we apologize for not finishing up our Olympics video covering our predictions for every single team. We stopped at Finland originally. We had a Sweden video prepared, but with the news that broke, unfortunately, we were cut short and we had to end it there. But the positive thing is, it allows us to get a head start on talking about the World Juniors. So today we're going to be covering the top prospects at the World Juniors tournament to keep an eye on.
Essentially, it's the top 20. Well, we have 21 players on our list, so essentially it's the top 21 players to look out for. Yeah, essentially it's the top 21 players to look out for at the World Juniors. So obviously we're going to start off with the obvious one, and I think everybody wants to know about this guy. So Shane Wright.
Your Montreal Canadiens is Shane Wright.
Hopefully, we'll see. But Shane Wright plays for Team Canada. Obviously, he's a center. He plays for the Kingston Frontenacs in the OHL. He's the projected first overall pick in the 2022 NHL entry draft. And what's interesting about him is that, he's obviously going to be Canada's number one guy. He's going to play on the top line, whatever. This season, though, what's interesting about him, 22 games played with Kingston. He's got 11 goals, 19 assists, 30 points. And last year had 14 points in the under-18 tournaments in 5 games played at that tournament. So Shane Wright's clearly a great player for everybody, his teammates, whatever. And obviously Canada's getting themselves a stud. He's really dynamic. He's really skillful. He plays both ends of the ice. But not only that, he's an offensive dynamite. He can make players look horrible.
The whole Canada team's pretty stacked.
That's it. But having Shane Wright on that team, to me is absolutely crazy for Canada.
And people questioned, will this guy go first overall? Just because he had a very slow start to his season. Yeah. But in November, he found his groove once again. Yeah. And you saw him putting up crazy numbers and proving why he should be drafted first overall.
Well, one thing too that's interesting, right? He had his slow start to the season. Ever since then, I think he had at the beginning, he had 9 points in 14 games, something like that. And people were freaking out. He's now got 30 points in 22 games. So he's clearly woken up and he's found his game and he's starting to, slowly figure himself out. And obviously, people are looking at 30 points in 22 games for a guy who's first overall. That's not that impressive. You got to understand.
Elite playmaking skills as well.
He's on a Kingston. Yeah, exactly. Elite playmaking player as well. But not only that, he's on a Kingston team that's not the greatest, and he had a slow start to the year as well. So once he picks it up, and if he has a great World Junior tournament, he can ball out in the second half.
People are comparing him to Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
And
I think there's other players though on the team that are better than him. I think the 16-year-old kid, Conor Bedard.
Well, we're gonna get to Conor Bedard, but before that, I want to get into
eventually. He's young, he still has time.
Conor Bedard's gonna be the youngest guy. He's currently the youngest player in the tournament, but which is a fact. But moving on to the second guy that I want to talk about. Well, his name is Matvei Mitchkov.
Oh, he's insane.
And plays for Russia, right winger. He plays for the SKA St. Petersburg. He's the top draft pick in next year's draft, 2023. This season, which is actually kind of impressive. 13 games played, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points.
Yeah, in a league where Alexander Ovechkin didn't even do that, if I'm not mistaken.
And the other thing too that's crazy about that is he's 17 years old, but he's got 5 points in 13 games. You go, that's not impressive. He's playing in a league with men. At 17 years old, he's playing with guys that are 30.
It's a low-scoring league.
That too. Right, and so that's what makes that very interesting. But the other thing that's very interesting is in the MHL, which is the minor leagues or whatever, he's got 11 games played. He's got 28 points in 11 games played in the MHL, which is essentially the AHL of the KHL. So what's crazy about that is in 11 games, he's got 28 points split between St. Petersburg and SKA Varyagi Morozov. So there you go. And he's absolutely insane. People are talking about him being the next Ovechkin. He's that good.
And I heard, really I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago saying that, obviously everyone's looking at Badard going number 1 next year, but this guy is going to give him a run at his money because he has this flair, this style to him that he will essentially rub it in your face, and has that style, that Russian style, where he's gonna play aggressive, he's gonna shoot from anywhere, and he's
Absolutely.
gonna make sure that if you put him in a scenario where you think you're not gonna get a lot from this guy, expect the unexpected from this guy.
He scored the Michigan too in one of his games that he played. He scored the Michigan goal, so that's also something to look at. And in the same tournament that Shane Wright was in, Shane Wright obviously played in the under-18 tournament. Well, Matvei Mitchkov topped him with 16 points in 7 games in the under-18 tournament. So obviously Shane Wright had less games played and less points, but Mitchkov 16 points in 7 games at the under-18 tournament for Russia. He's a guy to watch out for, and I think he's going to be the most.
And he's also one of the youngest guys on the Russian team. So people essentially would be
he is the youngest guy on the Russian team.
Yeah. So essentially, people would be like, because of his age, he's not going to be a key player.
Yeah.
Well, look at Russia's depth. They need a guy like this to freaking bust out and go crazy.
Absolutely.
Because this guy is. They think this guy could essentially prove a lot of people wrong and show why he's capable of being a potential first overall pick in next year's draft.
And moving on to the other one.
Sorry, in 2 years draft. In 2 years, sorry.
Well, next year.
Next year, yeah, whatever.
And so what's interesting is moving on to the other guy, and the guy we talked about before, Conor Mcdart, who plays for the Regina Pats in the WHL. He's also projected to be a top pick in 2023, and it's between him and Mitchkov for 1 and 2 essentially. Conor Bedard. Now, one thing I'm going to say before I read his stats, he's on a bad Regina Pats team. The team isn't that great. So his stats over 24 games is 14 goals, 10 assists, 24 points. So he's a point-a-game player. Had a better start to the WHL season last year. He had a slow start as well. And people were criticizing him. They're like, Conor Mcdart last year, had a good start. This year, not so much. But one thing you got to realize about Conor Mcdart as well, 14 points in 7 games at the under-18 tournament as well. So him and Shane Wright dominated that under-18 tournament. And again, the only issue that Conor Mcdart has is he's the youngest player in this tournament. He's Canada's 11th forward. But what I'm interested in seeing with Conor Mcdart is, as a 16-year-old, how's he going to fare in this tournament? Is he going to be the guy that's going to come in and dominate, or is he going to struggle right away and struggle to get his groove and whatever? Because you have to understand, being the youngest in this tournament, in a World Junior tournament with a bunch of players that are just as good as you or a little bit less talented than you, it's tough to compete against, right? And not everybody does it. Look at a guy like Nick Suzuki. He didn't have a great World Juniors, ended up becoming a really good player in the NHL. So there's stuff like that. But with Conor Bedard, because of how big he is and because of the fact that everyone's talking about him being the number 1 pick next year in 2023, the pressure's on for the kid. And it really is, especially since Mitchkov's on the other side for Russia.
Yeah, well, what people have to understand too, and something that he's been praised for apart from his skill, is his maturity.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's a type of player that really carries himself really well.
Well, they asked him in an interview. They said, do you compare yourself to McDavid? And he said, well, McDavid's putting up 2 points a game in the show, and I'm 16 years old. He goes, I'm not going to compare myself to McDavid, because he goes, to be honest, McDavid's doing 2 points per game in the NHL. Like, that's crazy. So he's very humble. He knows that he's got, he knows what he has to do. He's very mature, like you said. But it's a slow start for Conor Bedard. I think he's going to bounce back. Regina isn't that great either, so that we have to take that into consideration. But it's still very impressive for a 16-year-old.
In this tournament, I think
24
they're going to
points a game.
utilize Badard as somewhat of a secret weapon.
That's it. And I think what else is going to be interesting? He's going to be on the power play. And that's where I'm curious to see how he's going to be on the power play. Canada's got a lot of offensive threats, but on the power play, I want to see what he does.
Imagine, just ask yourself this question. Going into this tournament, watching Canada, you're putting Badard in a situation where you're going to use him as a secret weapon because you have that much depth.
That's it.
How good of a team
Canada's
can you really
the
have?
most stacked team in the tournament.
No, but I'd say he's better than a lot of the guys that are on the team as a permanent player.
Yeah,
his potential is
because I think the reason why he's the 11th
I think
forward,
they're scared to injure him.
I think the reason why he's the 13th forward on the team is
young.
because A, he's young, and B, I think it's just to play it safe and play it cautious for Canada. But like you said, I think he's going to be a secret weapon. I think he's going to be a big guy. Moving on. For Slovakia, now this guy not a lot of people know of.
I have no idea who this is.
He's projected to be a
I'm
top
gonna 10
be
pick
in 2022. Urachek Slovkovsky. Now, this guy, what's interesting about this guy is he currently plays in the under-20 league in Finland. He's a Slovakian left winger, 11 games played in the under-20 team, 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points. What's interesting about this guy is he's the type of guy that was under the radar. Nobody really talks about this guy because of the fact that he's Slovakian and because of the fact that nobody really pays attention to
Well, he
him.
also has been bouncing between two leagues.
Yeah, he's also played 20 games in the Liga, which is the Finnish
Liga, and he also played for the U21 SM Sarjar, if that's how you pronounce it.
That's what it's Sarja TPS. Yeah. And so he's played there.
6'4", 225-pound skater.
Absolutely.
Ridiculous.
And what's crazy about him is that, look, obviously in the Liga, only 4 points in 20 games. But you have to understand, guy's 17 years old.
He's playing with men.
He's playing with men, and he doesn't get that much ice time because a lot of young players, especially in the Finnish league at this time, they don't get a lot of ice time because they're not trusted because they're still young and whatever. But 4 points playing with men is still very impressive, especially for the ice time that he gets. But 18 points in 11 games for a guy like him to go in the top 10, especially in this year's draft, he's a threat. And I think Slovakia's got two guys that look really, really good and two guys to watch out for.
And people are actually surprised because you look at a guy that's 6'4", 225 pounds, and you see how quick he is as a skater and how smooth he is with the puck. You know, he's a very skilled player for a guy that's, you know, kind of heavy in a sense, and also huge, right? Also, obviously, he has to improve his shot, in my opinion, from what I've read and from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what kind of like brings him down, and that's what makes him like a top 10 caliber like prospect to be drafted in this upcoming draft. But also, like you were saying, bouncing back from two leagues back and forth, and obviously being a Slovak, you know, it doesn't really help, you know.
He doesn't get noticed as much as, let's say, a Canadian or a Russian because of the fact that he's from Slovakia.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is actually we're going to get on to his Slovakian teammate, Simon Nemec, who is actually, and what's interesting about this guy, and the reason why he's highly touted too, he's a right-handed defenseman. Right-handed defensemen in the NHL are tough to find.
Projected to go top 3.
He's the best defenseman in the draft, according to a lot of scouts. And with Slovakia this season, he's got 22 games. He's got 13 assists. But what was interesting too is last year in the World Juniors, he had 4 points in 5 games. Slovakia is not the most talented team when it comes to the World Juniors. You know, obviously they get Canada's obviously a better team, Russia, whatever. But seeing the fact that Slovakia's got 2 guys this year that are in the top 10 in the projected to go top 10 in the NHL draft is very promising if you're a Slovakian fan or if you're a Slovak watching this tournament, because you get to watch 2 really good, promising players. But not only that, if you're a team that's struggling, especially like, you know, the Canadians, Arizona, Buffalo, whatever, you're paying attention to these guys because these guys are dark horses, right? Nobody really talks about them.
He's an offensive defenseman, something that Montreal Canadians do need.
And he's a right-handed defenseman.
He's very creative with the puck. He's fast.
Yeah.
You know, so essentially.
So if you think they get the first overall pick, they don't go right?
No. This is if they go like 3rd or 4th.
That's it. If they go 3rd or 4th, they may go. And one thing you forgot to mention, he's a power play specialist. Absolute power play
something
specialist.
That the Montreal Canadians do.
Imagine the blue line. We'd have Ghoulie, Romanov, this kid.
Yeah. You know, I mean, apparently, you know, at first his defensive awareness wasn't the greatest, but apparently this year, over the last couple of months, it really improved. So essentially, this guy is he's a two-way defender, essentially. He has offensive and defensive abilities.
He's more offensively gifted than he is defensive. He's got good defensive traits, but he's more offensively gifted than
all right, and this guy could hit too, man. He uses his body too. He's not a chicken shit.
But that's it. But 13 points is impressive. The fact that he had 4 points in 5 games last year at the World Juniors is impressive as well. And I think that's it. Slovakia is going to be a very interesting team to watch because of those 2 players especially. And they're a team that could, you know, do some damage in the World Juniors.
Just because of those 2 guys being in the top 10 this year for this year's upcoming draft, they could be a dark horse to win this tournament. These 2 guys,
maybe not win the tournament, but definitely go far enough that they can, you know, do some damage to a team like Sweden or Russia.
Yeah.
Moving on, and this guy, has gotten a lot of praise, but lately he's gotten a lot of criticism. Brad Lambert. Now, Brad Lambert, you might think about yourself.
Not related to Adam Lambert.
No, and number one, he's Finnish, which is kind of funny because with a name like Lambert, people are going to be like, oh, what? He's half Canadian, half Finnish. He was born in Finland, therefore he plays for Finland. He plays for Jyp in the Liga. He's a top 10 pick in this year's draft. The problem with him is that very much he's been inconsistent. And one thing with Brad Lambert is 24 games played this season in the Liga, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points.
Well, originally he was projected to go in the top 3. They even said he was challenging Wright as a contender to be first overall pick. But I don't know what happened this season, but he dropped.
Even the last year too, there was a lot of inconsistency with Brad Lambert, and people don't really know where his ceiling is. Right? They look at this guy and they go, last year in the Liga, he had decent stats. He looked good. But this year, 6 points in 24 games, he's getting outplayed. And he's getting outplayed by his teammate, who we're going to mention after. And it's not looking good for Bran Lambert. He really needs a good tournament in the World Juniors. And I think this is an opportunity for him to show that he is top 10 caliber in this draft, because he's got a lot of skill. He's got a lot of talent.
The only thing that I do know from his play, from what I've seen and heard, is that his when he has the puck, he's fantastic. But off the puck,
he's
lost, man. He's like a deer in the headlights. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's probably related to Kokanyemi.
Bambi legs.
Bambi legs, bro.
And
this guy's Bambi eyes.
And so so that's the issue with Brad Lambert. He's very inconsistent, but like he said, very skillful. And I'm very curious to see how he does for Finland in the World Juniors, because Finland's going to be an interesting team to watch. And the reason why is because of this guy. This guy's a top 10 pick in 2022, and this guy's projected to go number 3, and I think he will. And I think that if Montreal at third overall is there, they either take him or they take Matthew Savoy. But I think they should take this guy, right winger, Jyp and Ligos. So he plays on the same team as Brad Lambert. But what's compared to him and Brad Lambert, 21 games played this season in the Liga, 12 goals, 6 assists, 18 points. This guy's a goal scorer. This guy will put the puck in the net. This guy will make defenders look horrible. He's got great hockey sense. He's got great vision. He's got a great shot. Joakim Kemel's just got it all. And I'm so excited.
You want to hear something crazy? I think he will be the best offensive player in this tournament.
I think so. He could be.
No, I think so.
He could be.
No. Mitchkov.
That too. I think him and Mitchkov are going to be two guys that are going to be very interesting to watch.
There's something about Kemel, man, and there's something about Finnish players that.
Mitchkov is a different beast.
But Finland, they've got that clutch factor. They really
would it be crazy to compare him to a guy like Barkov?
I mean, he's more of a winger. Barkov's more of a center, but I would compare him in terms of like
I'm talking his offensive ability.
Yes,
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not as a center.
No, he's. I think you can compare it to Barkov. I think he's good on both ends of the ice. He's a goal scorer. This guy will put the puck in the net, and he's got a fantastic shot. He's absolutely incredible with the shot that he's got. So I'm excited to see what he does in this tournament.
He's projected to go what overall?
He's projected to go in the top 5. I put him as a top 10 draft projection because you never know with the draft. But he's projected to go top 5. Like, he's that good.
In some people's predictions, they have him top 5. Some of them even have him at the top 3. Like, he really increases value this season.
I mean, it's impressive, right? He's 17 years old, playing against men in the Liga, and he's got 18 points in 21 games.
And what people like about his game is that he's a well-rounded offensive force.
Yeah.
He's not. He's capable of doing a lot of things that a lot of players are still lacking at his age.
Exactly.
So. Obviously, he's gonna be the driving force for Finland in this tournament, hands down. And I think he could be a standout, in my opinion.
It's a pretty loaded draft this year.
Yeah, so that's why this draft and next year's draft are
that's
very, very
why.
good.
Look at the Arizona Coyotes; they're very smart heading into this year's draft. They took a lot of bad contracts and stuff, but they have so many first-round picks and second-round picks.
They got how many? 3 first-round picks, no?
Arizona, I think so.
Yeah,
3, but they have 8 second-rounders.
Yeah,
something like that. And that's why teams in the bottom 5, like the Montreal Canadiens, need to start acting fast and unloading players, because this is a draft that will make or break your team.
A lot of people are saying this could be the best draft we've seen in a long time. Like, that's what a lot of people are saying, that the top 10 they could all make the NHL tomorrow.
This is a message for anybody that's a fan of the Montreal Canadiens, Arizona Coyotes, or any team that's currently at the bottom 5. Do not get attached to any of your players, because when you look at this list of players, these are high talented players that could potentially be franchise players in the years to come. And you're not going to be complaining when you have these guys wearing your jersey. And it's going to be fantastic.
Exactly.
And if you need a rebuild, these are the guys to draft.
Exactly. But what's interesting, and actually next one, and we're gonna start talking about players that got drafted last year. And if you're a Minnesota Wild fan, I'm sure you guys are going to be tuning into this guy, Jesper Walstead, a goaltender for Sweden.
He's going to be the MVP, considering goalies this tournament. That's my prediction.
Sweden goalie, plays for Luleå in the SHL. What's interesting about this guy is this season he's played 17 games. He's got a goals against average of 1.82 and a save percentage of 923, playing against men in the Swedish league. He's got a record of 9-8, which is not that bad, but don't look at the record. Look at the save percentage and the goals against average. Last year, he played 22 games with Luleå, 2.23 goals against average, 908 save percentage in his first year with Luleå. This guy is going to be I think the reason if Sweden wins this tournament is because of him. Last year when he played in the World Juniors, he was the backup.
I don't
This year
think
he's the
Sweden's
starter.
gonna win.
This year's the start. He's the starter, and he's the best goalie. In my
I
opinion,
don't
he's the
think
best
Sweden's gonna win either, but I think this guy's having a phenomenal
But
tournament.
If they do win, it's because of him. In my opinion, if they win, it's because of Jesper Walstead.
Well, you think
Walstead's
he's-
going to bail
you
him
think
out.
I
he's
honestly
gonna bail
think he
him
is
out
the
of-
in this tournament, in my opinion, and the guy with the most upside, in my opinion, Jesper Walstead. And Minnesota fans are going to be tuning in because this guy's your future goaltender, man, and he looks really good. He really, really does. So yeah, moving on to another Swedish player. This time, William Eklund. He plays for Djurgårdens in IF in the Swedish Elite League as well. He was drafted by San Jose 7th overall. We're still on the first page, but
No,
anyways,
I know, I'm just
but
looking.
drafted 7th overall by San Jose in 2021. And what's interesting about this guy is he's actually played in the NHL. He is the most experienced player in this list. He's played 9 games in the NHL this season. He's got 4 assists for 4 points with the San Jose Sharks. They sent him back to Sweden because they wanted him to. They didn't want to burn the first year of his entry-level contract. In Sweden this year, he's got 9 games played, 5 assists, 5 points. William Eklund's going to be a guy to watch out for. A, because he's the most experienced out of the players that we're going to mention. But B, he was fantastic. He's one of the players that I think San Jose wanted him to play on the NHL team, but I think they want to give him the chance to develop a little bit more, and that's why I think he's in
he
this
could have
tournament.
easily made the team.
But he's fantastic. William Eklund's
But
going to
why rush him?
Exactly. And I think what was interesting too about William Eklund is last year in his draft year for San Jose, he had 23 points in 40 games in his draft year playing as a 17-year-old against men. This guy's phenomenal. Watch the way that this guy moves the puck. Watch the way he creates plays. Watch his hockey sense. Watch him on the ice. If you're gonna watch Sweden games this year at the World Juniors, just pay attention to this kid and the way he plays hockey because it's fantastic and it's fascinating.
And what
to
I like
watch.
about this tournament in particular is that every single team is gonna have at least 2 players to watch out for.
Absolutely.
So
Most teams.
Most teams, whatever. Like you look at other years. Let's say Canada or the States last year, for example, they were the 2 of the most stacked teams. Everyone was really paying attention to those 2 teams in particular because of the players on the team, right? This year, you're looking at Slovakia, you're looking at Finland, you're looking at Sweden, you're looking at Russia, because you could take pieces from each team and be like, you know what, they're all stand-up players. These guys are all going to be top 20 eligible prospects heading into either this year's draft or next year's draft, or have already been drafted last year.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what makes William Eklund and these prospects very interesting. But one guy that I'm actually going to look forward to a lot, and I kind of like this guy, and I'm kind of happy that he's going to be back at the World Juniors again for his last year. Cole Perfetti, center left wing, plays for the Manitoba Moose in the AHL. He was drafted 10th overall by the Winnipeg Jets in 2020. This guy's playing the AHL this season. He's had 2 games in the NHL, no points during his 2 games in the NHL. But made his NHL debut. In the AHL this season, though, 17 games played, 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points. He's been great. Manitoba love him. And again, last year in the World Juniors, when he played, 6 points in 7 games in the World Junior Championships last year. And in the AHL, when he played, he had 25 points in 31 AHL games. Cole Perfetti is a guy, when he goes everywhere, he puts up points. He's one of the most skilled players on Team Canada. He's one of the most, talented, whatever. But this guy puts up points. He's very good at putting up
second line, right?
Yeah. And so I think he's going to play on the second line. He might even play on the top line with Shane Wright. And if he does, that's going to be deadly, having him and Shane Wright together. But Perfetti's going to be a guy to watch.
The good thing about this year is that a lot of the players that were playing last year are not there. So guys like Kaden Ghoulie, who we will be speaking about. Kaden Ghoulie, Kaden Ghoulie. Jesus, I was thinking about my friend that plays hockey. Shout out to him. No. Kaden Ghoulie, Cole Perfetti, there was so much depth last year that these guys fell down to like a third line or fourth line role. I mean, talking about Cole Perfetti, and Ghoulie was a third pairing defenseman.
Yeah.
Now this year you have Cole Perfetti potentially being a first line player and Kaden Ghoulie being a first. God, jeez, Kaden Ghoulie.
I mean, you can call him Kevin if you want. It's not a big deal. Just
it's not his name.
Hopefully,
it's not a big deal. It's not his name.
Hopefully, he doesn't watch these videos. That's it. It's all good.
Kaden Ghoulie is going to be a top pairing defenseman this year, and he's been named Team Canada's captain.
Well, we can actually just move on to him since he's the next guy on the list, anyways.
Okay.
But so Kaden Ghoulie, like you said, Captain Canada,
very mature for his age, well spoken, knows how to lead. Last year everyone was
No
talking about
controversies.
no.
Yet.
Yet.
Last year everyone was like surprised about how well he was playing at a reduced role as a third pairing defenseman. Honestly, I think he was one of the most underappreciated players in last year's tournament.
Yeah.
So heading into this tournament, there's more of a higher ceiling for this player. Not only that, being nominated for team Canada's captain. I watch TSN and Sportsnet, and they have a lot of good things to say about that, and it's very encouraging. Being a Montreal Canadiens prospect.
Does he not have a brother that plays with the Ducks?
He does. Brendan Gooley is his brother. Yeah, he plays for the San Diego Bulls.
Yeah.
That guy's been on waivers like so many times.
But but Kaden Ghoulie, what's interesting about him, actually, fun fact, he was traded in the WHL from Prince Albert to Edmonton Oil Kings, which is why he currently plays for the Edmonton Oil Kings. What I did is I added up both his stats from Prince Albert and Edmonton at the moment. So when I added up both his stats, in 20 games, he has 3 goals, 15 assists, 18 points. He's on the power play. He's an offensive defenseman. He's hard hitting. He's a leader. Kaden Ghoulie's got the whole package. And what was
he's your modern day Shea Weber, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he is. And even last year at the World Juniors, playing a third pairing role, like you said, 3 points in 7 games, 2 of them goals, and they were big goals too. They were important goals. So Kaden Goulie's good in tournaments. But what was interesting too about Kaden Ghoulie, and I'm kind of glad he gained some experience last year by playing with the Rocket. He played 3 games with the Laval Rocket last year. I know it wasn't a lot, but he gained some experience. And even Joel Bouchard last year, when he talked about him, he said Kaden Goulie's a guy that's going to play in the NHL in 2 years. And obviously, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, you're looking at this tournament, you're watching this guy especially because he's a future blue liner for the Montreal Canadiens, and I think he's going to be a future top 4 blue liner for the Canadiens, and he's going to be someone that Canadiens fans are going to love because he's a leader. He plays a hard-hitting game, and he can put up points, and that's exactly what I think Canadiens fans are excited about. So when they drafted him 16th overall, there was a lot of back and forth, and a lot of people didn't really know what to expect with him. But watch this World Junior Tournament, guys. I'm telling you, if you're a Habs fan, you're going to be impressed with the way he plays. He's fantastic in both ends of the ice. He's just great.
Yeah. So right now, currently, you have Kaden Ghoulie playing as a second pairing defenseman because obviously he plays on the left side, and who's essentially better than him is Owen Power, who we'll be discussing as well.
Yeah.
And going back to Cole Perfetti, he's playing the left wing on the left wing side of Shane Wright on the top line.
There you go.
So,
and that line's going to be crazy. But anyways, moving on to another Canada player, and this time we're going to talk about the goalie, Sebastian Casa, who also plays for the Edmonton Oil Kings of the WHL. He was drafted by Detroit 15th overall last draft in 2021. This season, 21 games played, goals against average of 2.26, 924 save percentage. His record, 15-3-3. Ridiculous. You know what's even more ridiculous? He played 19 games last year in the WHL, 17-1-1. He went with a goals against average of 1.57 and a save percentage.
Just wanted to add that his partner, Dylan Garand, he signed a 3-year deal with the new York Rangers today. And
what do you mean by his partner?
His backup goalie.
His backup goalie.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like his boyfriend.
No.
I was like, what the
no, he has a girlfriend. I can confirm. I checked his Instagram.
No, I was like, wow. I was like, that would have been cool.
Thinking
I'm
of
like,
hitting him up.
No, well, actually, if you want to come on the podcast as a guest,
no, but I mean, like, it would have
That'd be
been
a
cool.
pleasure.
No, like 2 boyfriends in the NHL. Is there any? There isn't any at the moment.
There's
I don't think.
There's a guy who openly came out as.
No, I meant like a couple in the NHL.
No, I
There
don't think
isn't.
so.
That would be cool.
That would be.
That would be cool. Imagine they played for a separate team, though.
Imagine
How would
they
that work out?
Imagine they were like
Yeah, I
same
know.
team.
That'd be kind of weird.
That would be kind
same
of strange.
team, same line.
That'd be kind of weird.
Well, imagine one of them
Hey,
gets
babe.
traded,
Hey, babe.
though.
By the way, I'm gonna score on you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyways, going back to
Cosa.
Cosa.
Yeah. So this guy, I mean, look, I personally think he's the second best goalie in this draft because I've always liked Walstead better than him. But I think for Canada, he's going to be fantastic. The thing with Cosa is he plays on a very good Edmonton Oil Kings team, very, very good. And his stats, obviously, 15-3-3 is impressive. 17-1-1 last year is absolutely impressive. It's unheard of. But I don't know. I have a weird. I don't know. We'll see with him. I like him. He's an elite goalie. Detroit's got themselves a fantastic goalie. Goalie for the future for them.
Drafted
for sure.
by the man Stevie Yzerman.
Steve Yzerman, which that means it's a good draft pick if Steve Yzerman drafted
He
him.
drafted Vasilevsky, so
That's
you know
it. So
he
he
definitely
knows-
sees something in Cosa.
He knows how to pick good goalies. But the thing with
Knows how to pick everything.
Koza,
And he knows how to score on them too.
yeah,
He knows how to
exactly.
fleece people in trades too.
Yeah.
That's it. So Koza for me, Canada, he's going to be Canada's guy, and he's going to be the guy that's going to be behind them. And I think Canada's going to be okay with him in that. He's fantastic. He's going to be fun to watch. A worse year this year compared to last year, but I mean it happens. You can't always have a 941 save percentage every year. It's kind of unheard of, but
It's hard being
Still,
a consistent goaltender,
924 is still very impressive.
especially in the modern day of
Yeah.
hockey.
And 924 is still very impressive, and 15-3-3 is very impressive as
Yeah,
well.
I mentioned that in another video too, but like I'll mention it again. I don't know. I find the goalies nowadays they're such like a expendable player on the team.
Yeah, it's either you're good
Or
or
you're
you're
not
not.
No, it's like I feel like when let's say like the GMs nowadays,
Yeah.
they're not gonna build their team like, okay, like we need a goalie. They're gonna be like, okay, let's get other pieces and we'll focus on the goalie last.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know, 'cause you need a good goalie to win.
But
a
then
cup.
again, there's also a team that they focus on. Let's just get a goalie in the team. So
You know what
That's
actually
it. We
reminds
just
me
need
of
a
that?
goalie.
You know, a team that reminds me on
So-
like let's focus on defense and forwards and the goalies is like whatever.
Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto, Minnesota, and the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the Edmonton Oilers need a goalie to be good.
Yeah.
San Jose too. You could argue.
To a
James
certain
Reimer's had a good
extent.
season.
Yeah, he's
But-
been underrated.
Who else? The Flyers. Well, I mean they have
Carter
hearts,
Hart,
but I
no,
mean like he's
not
still.
even.
Anyways, moving on to the next guy that I want to talk about, Matthew Beniers, who was drafted second overall by Seattle last year. He currently plays for the University of Michigan, which he's teammates with Owen Power, which we're going to get to. Matthew Beniers this season, 20 games played, 11 goals, 11 assists, 22 points. Fantastic player. Last year for Michigan in his draft year as a sophomore, 24 points in 24 games. He was a point-a-game player for Michigan. 3 points in the World Junior Championships, playing on the third line for Team USA and winning a gold medal as well. And he played 6 games at the World Championships with NHL players at the World Championships, and he had 2 points in 6 games.
Everyone's talking about Beniers.
Yeah.
But like, I'll be honest with you, I think Logan Cooley's gonna be better than him this year.
Absolutely, and even him, that's the guy that I wanted to talk about as well. Who's
17 years old.
who's also another guy, 17 years old. He plays for the U.S. National Development Program. He's a top prospect in this year's draft as well. He's also great. 20 games played, 14 goals, 16 assists, 30 points in the U.S. DP. In the USHL, 7 games played, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. He's got 38 points in 27 games in all tournaments. He's
Strong
fantastic.
skater, dynamic offensive player.
Absolutely.
A lot of like a huge offensive
And
threat.
he's an elite center. And I think
Great
that's
shot, great playmaking, overall offensive threat, man.
That's
Really,
it.
really talented.
And what's interesting between him and Beniers is that they're kind of the same player. They're kind of the same player, just on 2 different drafts, right?
And he also has good defensive upside too. This guy,
exactly.
he's not that bad.
And what I like about Cooley and what I like about Beniers, and it's actually kind of funny, right? Because I was thinking about it today. Seattle already drafted Beniers, right? Cooley's a guy who's going to go top 5. I think Seattle may end top 5
So
this
we'll get
season.
his partner.
Why
Basically.
don't you go get Logan Cooley, and then you've got 2 guys that can arguably play the same position.
Be a bad idea.
And just have a first and second line center for the future in Cooley and Beniers. So that's something that I think if you're Seattle, you're definitely looking at, because having Cooley and Beniers, that would be fantastic for them and a great start to their franchise for them as well.
That's something that teams should be looking at too. During the World Juniors. Let's say I have a player who's already drafted, and there's another prospect that's gonna be eligible that I know will not be a reach. I'm gonna be able to draft him because my team's doing poorly.
Yeah,
Yo, take that into consideration because those 2 guys, man,
that's it.
you need a dynamic like that. You
Absolutely.
got the Mitch Marner and Matthews, you got the Draisaitl and McDavid.
I know this is gonna be a controversial question, but absolutely, why is it that Logan Mailloux is not playing anywhere?
Because he got suspended until January 1st.
He's not playing no hockey at all.
Until as of January, he could start playing again.
Yeah,
But
He's
even
not-
the World Juniors
Yeah, he got suspended
everything.
from everywhere.
From everywhere.
Yeah, no.
until January.
He's allowed to train and stuff.
allowed
and
to
go
train, but he can't play
the
games.
facility and whatever and practice,
can't play.
but he can't play.
He got suspended.
Holy shit!
But yeah, so moving on to another defenseman and another one who plays for the University of Michigan and the number 1 overall pick for the Buffalo Sabres last year, Owen Power.
No relation to Austin Powers.
This guy is Canada's best defenseman. He's Canada's most dynamic defenseman. He's the guy that's going to carry Canada's defense. But what's interesting about him, 21 points in 18 games for University of Michigan as a defenseman, 3 goals, 18 assists, power play specialist. Last year for Michigan, 16 points in 26 games.
Him and Darlene are gonna be.
Yeah. very good together. And
Yeah.
3 points in 10 games for Canada at the World Championships.
what?
But what was interesting about him when he had the 3 points in 10 games at the World Championships, people were talking about how great he was, how he kept up with NHL players, and people were freaking out about how good he was. He impressed a lot of people. He's going to impress people at the World Juniors this year. Canada's got themselves a fantastic decor with him and Ghoulie next to him.
Very solid top four.
And Owen Power is a guy to watch. He's a guy to absolutely watch. Watch Canada's power play because they're going to be one of the most deadly.
This is the beauty about the World Juniors. You get to look at the development of players that your team drafted or
Exactly.
that will potentially draft in the upcoming
And
draft.
also, a lot of players play really, really well in World Juniors,
And then they suck.
and then they suck, and then a lot of them really suck, and they play like extremely well.
But that's it. I mean,
You know, it's like a hit or miss. Really.
but
You can't
what's
really,
interesting about the World Juniors too is that
Max
it's a,
Domi, Anthony Duclair were guys that had very strong performances at the World Juniors, and then it took them a while for them to get
You could
Yeah.
argue- you
get
could
going in the
argue- You
NHL.
could argue Duclair is like he only had one season really.
Yeah.
That was like.
but that's
great.
it. And with Anthony
Domi's a solid guy overall.
I think the thing is with the World Juniors, it's a question. It's also to showcase like how good these guys are, right? A lot of these guys that come into the World Juniors,
but-
every single guy that comes into the World Juniors is talented.
Sorry to cut you off, but I think this guy's gonna remind me. I think that there was one World Juniors where I watched it from like beginning to end, and like I watched every single game, every single. I find he reminds me of Pietrangelo.
Yeah,
Owen Power.
Owen Power, yeah.
Power, sorry.
I
Jeez.
can
yeah.
I can agree. I can see this.
Pietrangelo in the World Juniors was a machine.
Yeah, and I think Owen Power is going to be very impressive. Like
Yeah.
people are going to be very surprised with how good he is. Moving on to another defenseman and another Steve Yzerman draft pick, sixth
Oh,
overall.
Stevie White, just so talented.
Sixth overall in 2021, and it's funny because they drafted Moritz Seider at this exact position too. Simon Edmondson, who plays
Detroit's
for
gonna be so scary. Oh my
for
God.
for London. Detroit's going to be crazy, man.
And then he's gonna leave right before they win
That's
the
it, that's
Stanley
it.
Cup.
And for
Well-
Detroit fans, this guy's being compared to a Hall of
Nicholas Lindstrom.
Famer, Nicholas Lindstrom.
Well,
Former
what's
Detroit
interesting
Red
about him too, plays for Frölunda this year. 24 games played, 1 goal, 11 assists, 12 points. He's an offensive defenseman as well, and he's on the top 4 in Frölunda. Plays with Matthias Norlinder, who's also a Montreal Canadiens prospect. But he's Frölunda's best defenseman, and in my
Apparently,
opinion,
on one-on-one situations, this guy is very scary to play against. He's very aggressive, and he will like F you up.
and
I wouldn't want to
gonna-
play against this guy.
It's gonna be super fun to watch this guy play. Number one, because he's a Steve Yzerman draft pick. Number two,
6
because
for
he plays
4, 198 pounds.
Yeah, and
Jesus,
I'm
that's
excited.
crazy.
He's a dynamic defenseman. He's an offensive defenseman. He's a two-way defenseman. He just plays. He's just fantastic. Honestly, Simon Edmondson, there's nothing bad for me to say about him. He's just fantastic in every sense of the word, and I'm so excited to watch this guy play as well. Moving on to a guy that not a lot of people know, a top 10 pick, the second best defenseman in this year's draft in a lot of people's opinion, and he's right-handed as well. David Urachek, who plays for Czech Republic. If you're a Czech Republic fan, or if you're from the Czech, you might want to watch this guy. He's top
He's
prospect.
moved up in a lot of people's predictions
Yeah.
in the upcoming draft.
That's it. He's surprised a lot of people, and the reason why he surprised a lot of people, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points in 29 games. That's very impressive. And the reason why it's very impressive is because not a lot of Czech defensemen, there's not that many Czech defensemen in the NHL that are elite.
He's very
And-
skilled with the puck, and he has a lot of confidence when he plays.
Exactly. And
That's what I like about his game.
what's interesting about him too, and what I like about him as well, he's a rare breed of defenseman. You don't really see a lot of guys do what he does. He's very good offensively. He's very good defensively, but he's very safe. He plays a very safe game. He doesn't take a lot of risks. But at the end of the day, too, if you're a Czech Republic hockey fan, if you're watching the World Juniors, or if you just like, your favorite player is David Pastrnak, whatever. Well, if you're a Czech Republic fan, you've got yourself a guy to pay attention to when he gets drafted in the NHL as well. And you've got a guy to watch in the World Juniors because this guy's going to be fun to watch. And not a lot of Czech Republic defensemen there are in the NHL that are very, very good. So having this guy come in and potentially be that next player,
Yeah,
could
very,
be fun to
very
watch.
good two-way forward. Uses his
defenseman,
size.
defenseman, not
Oh
forward.
yeah, jeez. Oh my
defenseman.
God, what's wrong with me
It's
today?
all good. It's all good.
Two-way defender, very strong. Uses that to his advantage. Very good passer. He has good vision too, which is honestly fantastic to have in a defender. So for Czech fans heading into this year's World Juniors and for the draft, this is very promising moving forward. Having
Yeah.
a guy represent your country this talented, probably, I would say, in my opinion, I would say he's a top 10 to top 15 draft pick
Yeah,
this year.
around there. And so another guy who's actually a top draft pick, this guy's a forward, and we talked about Matvey Mitchkov for Russia this year. There's another Russian player. This guy, Danila Yurov. He's struggled in the KHL this year. 21 games played, 0 points. But in the MHL, 6 games played, 3 goals, 9 assists, 12 points. He's fantastic. He's also a right winger. What's interesting about him is that he's got this flair to him, kind of like Mitchkov, where he does things on the ice and he just does things with a flair and with excitement, and you don't really know what you're going to get out of him. But he's more of a passer. 25 points, 23 games in the MHL last season. He's a guy who puts up points. Yes, in the KHL, he's got 0 points in 21 games. It happens because he's ice time and whatever. Watch out for this guy. This guy could really impress a lot of people in the World Juniors. He's fun to watch. He's another right winger.
But what do you
He's
expect
a
when his
sleeper.
minutes are limited
That's
in
it.
the KHL?
And also, you have to say he's 17 years old. So he's young. Minutes are limited. You don't really expect much in a low-scoring league, the KHL as well. So having him there is going to be interesting. But Yurov's a guy to watch for sure. He's very, very skilled. Very, very skilled. Can shoot the puck, can pass the puck. His vision's incredible. And again, it's a top 10 pick in this year's draft.
But what I like about him, and this goes with the same reason that I have why I like Russian players in general,
Yeah.
is competitive level.
Yeah.
And his two-way ability is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
The way that he's able to hit, he has the skill to obviously he's, like you mentioned, he's a fantastic playmaker, opposed to a guy that's going to score more goals. He's going to get more assists than goals, so that's fantastic as well.
He reminds me a little bit of Artemi Panarin. The way he plays, and even like I watched him
Yeah.
play a little bit. I've watched a few of his highlights as well. He reminds me a little bit of Artemi Panarin. He could do a little bit of everything, and he's just that good.
This guy's playing with men with limited minutes.
Yeah.
So what do you really expect from this guy? You know what I mean? Eventually, with time, if he's potentially stays in the KHL a little bit longer, opposed to making the NHL right away, depending what the NHL team does that drafts him, expect him to increase his play, especially with the increase of minutes that they're gonna give him as he gets older. So very promising player.
And so what's interesting about him as well is that like you said, he's a promising player, but not only that. He's a guy that he never gives up. He's a hard worker. He's not lazy. He puts himself in dirty areas and he works hard.
Your
And
ideal Russian player,
that's
essentially.
He works very, very hard. Moving on to another Russian player and the last one on our list, Russian.
That was pretty quick.
Russian. Well, not the last one. We still have 2 more USA players. He's
Yaroslav.
the Russian.
Okay.
He's the last Russian player on our list.
Halak.
Goalie for Russia, Yaroslav Askarov, who was, or I mean Yaroslav Halak. Depending on what year you're in or
He
what.
changed nationalities.
That's it. He changed nationalities too.
Yeah.
He's also like lost a few age.
Lost a few ages.
Yeah, went down. I don't know.
Our grammar is fantastic.
Our grammar is
this year.
great today. But anyways, drafted 11th overall by Nashville in 2020. He's a lot of people talk about how good he is. Well, in the VHL this season, 5 games played, goals against average of 220, 913 save percentage, a record of 2-2-1. And in the KHL, similar stats: 201 save percentage, 904 record.
I forgot
1-1
which
and 2.
goalie it was that they drafted.
Nashville.
No, not Nashville. And I forgot which NHL team drafted, and I forgot the name of the goalie too. But I remember that a lot of players. Anyways, when people are scouting, wins are not important.
No, it's save percentage and goals against.
Exactly. But there's this one year where they drafted a goalie because he had like a ridiculous winning percentage. I think he went like 32-2, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And there was a team that drafted. Anyways,
it sounds familiar.
Never.
I think I know who you're talking about. I just don't remember his name.
It was like a horrible mistake. I forgot who it was. I forgot which team too.
I
but
think it was
I know
2 years
they went.
ago, if I'm not mistaken.
I know they went with something like that.
But like, look, even with Askarov, right? You can look at his record and stuff and say, oh, it's not that impressive. Last year, in 9 games in the KHL.
No, listen, and 0.913 percentage is it's pretty good.
But not only that, this last year in the KHL, 9 games played, 1.21 goals against, 951 save percentage, which is impeccable.
Yeah.
And even
wow,
in the World Junior Championship,
big word.
I know. And even in the World Junior Championships last year, 2.5 goals against average, 914 save percentage in 6 World Junior Championship games. He went 3-3. Askarov, the only thing I have an issue with him, I find he's a little bit small. He's a small goalie. He's I think 5'11" or 5'10".
So what's wrong with small goalies? Luca.
Well, the problem is that when you have a small goalie, you
Do you have a
show
do you have
the
a
net more.
preference?
Yeah, I have a preference in terms of goalies
What's
need to be
that
at
supposed
least.
to mean?
I have a preference in terms of goalies need to be at least higher than 6 foot, because if they're lower than that, then it's the problem.
You know what? I'm
He's wearing
I'm gonna
skates,
tell
though.
Dustin Tokarski what you
Does
just
it-
said
d-
right
does-
now.
Yeah, and Dustin
And I'm gonna
Tokarski.
tell Halak too.
Yeah.
5'11" goaltenders.
Well, you know what, man? Listen, Askarov's still a good goalie. I think Nashville's gonna be very happy with him. I think Russia's gonna be very happy with him. But if he can be more consistent, I think that would be great for everybody. But his size does hurt him, and that's all I'm gonna say. Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on to Luke Hughes, and yes, Luke Hughes is the brother of Quinn and Jack Hughes, who both went very early in the NHL draft.
The shittiest of the Hughes. No, I'm joking.
Well, not really. 'Cause
I'm joking.
not really, because he was drafted 4th overall by New Jersey last year. This year for the University of Michigan as well. Notice how there's a lot of University of Michigan. Michigan's doing very well. Good job to Michigan. But
There's actually a Jack Hughes being drafted this
I know,
year.
which is kind of crazy.
But he's like
too.
going like 22nd
Yeah.
or like whatever. I don't know
But-
where he's projected.
But then there's Luke
But top
Hughes.
20s.
But there's Luke Hughes, and which no relation to that Jack Hughes that's getting drafted this year either, which is kind of funny. But anyways, 20 games played, 7 goals, 11 assists, 18
It's
points.
their cousin.
He's a power play specialist as well, and another one that I think with USA and the other defenseman that we're going to talk about after. This guy he's good with the puck. He reminds me of Quinn Hughes. He's exactly like Quinn Hughes, except he's better defensively. Yes, that's a shot at Quinn Hughes. Don't come at me, Vancouver fans. But anyways, fantastic player. Last year, 34 points in 38 games with the U.S. National Development Program and 15 points in 18 games in the USHL. Luke Hughes he's a dynamic defenseman. He's good skating, great defense, great off the puck as well, great defensive awareness. He's got it all. He's got the total package.
He's been compared to the likes of Heiskanen and Shea Theodore.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. And New Jersey fans are going to be
That's
tuning
very
in.
promising, to be honest.
New Jersey fans are going to be tuning into this World Juniors definitely to watch him. And if you're Jack Hughes, I'm sure you're going to be supporting your brother, and Quinn Hughes too. Sure you're going to be supporting
Yes,
your brother
sir.
as well.
Let's move on to the
And
next
move
one.
on to the last one on the list. Ottawa Senator draft pick, 5th overall in 2020. Jake Sanderson, who plays for the University of North Dakota. 15 games played this year, 6 goals, 13 assists, 19 points. He's more than a point a game player for the University of North Dakota. He's the U.S.'s best defenseman.
I think he will be the best defender in this tournament.
Absolutely.
You said that about 5 of these guys.
No,
No, I said that Wilstad would be the best goaltender.
But I honestly
Wilstad,
think,
yeah, sorry.
I think Owen Power is gonna be the best one.
Camilla, I said that he was going to be
the best forward.
the best forward, and the best
Sanderson.
defender is going to be Jake Sanderson.
I think
It's gonna
he's.
be Power. Best defenseman.
I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Sanderson's a guy that doesn't get a lot of credit. I don't think people give him enough credit. He's very,
He
very.
doesn't have
good.
a flashy name. That's why. Power and then Sanderson.
Sanderson's a flashy name.
No,
It sounds like one of the guys from the second Mighty Ducks movie, part of who do they play against? Iceland, out of all countries. And
No.
that could have gone to the finals versus the
yeah,
US.
they really did Canada dirty in that one.
Yeah, Wayne Gretzky going to congratulate the United States, like kind of
Because he was playing for LA during the
kind
time.
of move
you know,
was that?
California. They're trying to grow the market there.
He's not even American though.
But anything else to add on Jake Sanderson?
That's it. I mean, he's a good player, and Ottawa fans are going to be very happy to have him, and they're going to tune into
Listen,
him.
Ottawa's pretty stacked. Right
Look,
now.
guys,
Young
there's probably
kids.
a couple of names that were missing, but this is our top 21 picks. I know 21. What a weird number. Odd numbers, ill, right? So
We should have got rid of someone on the list.
Yeah, it's
but it's
okay.
okay.
I don't
It's all
know.
good.
These are the players that came to mind when making the list. That were drafted or that will potentially be drafted this year or next year. And if we didn't mention certain names, make sure to write that in the comment section below. We hope you enjoyed this video. We want to say happy holidays to
Merry
everyone
Christmas.
because this will be our last video before the 25th. And we'll be talking very soon on the day of the World Juniors on the 26th. We'll be giving our predictions of who will win the World Junior Championship this year. So thank you so much, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and check out any other content that we made. And happy holidays.